Steve Grumbine was a conservative Republican raised to believe that you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But in the economic crash of 2007 and 2008, Steve lost his 17-year career at Ma Bell. 2 master's degrees and other advanced training could not prevent 18 months of unemployment for Steve. Then Steve learned about modern monetary theory, or MMT, as we call it. He learned that a sovereign government, that is the currency issuer like the US, can spend on anything it chooses as long as it has the real resources, which Steve can speak about what those real resources are. Steve founded Real Progressives to share MMT knowledge. Steve, today's topic is environmental justice. Will you speak about how the Green New Deal addresses that and the interrelated crises we face, and how our national government can pay for the Green New Deal and more?
No, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me on, EC, and our revolution. I really appreciate you all having me on. We are in unprecedented times right now. We have a climate crisis that is crashing down upon us. We have massive, widespread unemployment that is crashing down upon us. And we haven't even seen the worst of it yet as the CARES payments stop and the unemployment enhancements stop. The mortgages start coming due and so forth. We're about to see a flurry of activity that is not going to look very good. And we don't really have a lot of good answers right now. Our current politicians, our current people that are in the limelight, including the Unity Commission that worked with Joe Biden's team here recently, came up with a very unambitious attack on how to deal with not only the crisis, but how to deal going forward, especially leaving off a Green New Deal and other such important areas of opportunity that are beyond just the idea of wouldn't it be nice. We're talking about life sustaining and ultimately keeping civilization together. And it's very important to understand right here, right now, that the IPCC some 3 years ago gave us 12 years to address the climate problem that we are facing and have been facing for many, many years since the Industrial Revolution started putting so many pollutants into the air. Here we are now sitting on the precipice of a true climate disaster. Beyond just some of the melting that we see, some of the rising ocean levels that we see, some of the green algae and other such things, and drought in other places, it's going to get much, much worse. And it's going to come in the form of refugees, climate refugees, people that are looking for water, people that are looking for food, people that are looking for shelter. And the United States has been woefully behind on addressing these issues. As quote unquote, the wealthiest nation in the world, we have taken a very austere approach to addressing not only the public purpose, the things that we need, but these crises that we have right here, right now in front of us. And one of the things that I want to focus on very heavily right now, Senator Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and Markey, Senator Edward Markey put forward the Green New Deal back when she first came into office. It was a very, very explosive, on the scenes kind of welcoming party, if you will, to her presence in the political sphere, which was welcomed because we have very few of them so bold and so willing to take on such a hard topic as this. And as you watch the kids marching around and you watched the deafness of our elected representatives in actually addressing these things, it has to make you wonder, what will it take for us to collectively present these very important issues to the people so that they understand not only are there answers, but there are really ready to go answers that will keep our planet not only life-sustaining, but allow our children to be able to flourish as we go forward. So one of the things I want to focus on, because it works in particular with the COVID-19 situation, as well as the climate crisis that you're experiencing around the world and in particular South Carolina, we are looking at a federal job guarantee. Pavlina Trineva, who is one of the leading voices in not only modern monetary theory, but federal job guarantee, This was a part of the Green New Deal. It was a core part of the Green New Deal. And it also included something called a just transition. These are two concepts that most people had no idea about, didn't talk about. They got caught up in a lot of discussions about UBI versus job guarantee, and in fact, missed the big point of the job guarantee. So what the job guarantee does, and it's very important to understand especially within your state, is the job guarantee says, hey, we can either have unemployed people or we can have employed people. And the idea of the federal government paying for jobs, redefining what jobs are, redefining what work is, allows people to serve their local communities. And in a time of a COVID-19 virus that has got us in lockdown and shut down the economy, a federal job guarantee would have allowed people to redefine work and work in their homes, take care of children, do whatever it was to make sure that they didn't have to make these horrible choices to go back to work or reopen the economy. The other issue was the just transition. And that just transition is key because many of the people that are working in these fossil fuel industries, these dirty industries that play a key role in creating the crisis that we're in today, they're going to resist change. They're going to resist getting rid of that kind of work. Their entire lives have been predicated on working in the fossil fuel business, working in coal mines, working in all these different industries that we want to try to get rid of or move away from or turn into a more sustainable production. And because of that, we have to have a way of making them whole. And so part of the Green New Deal that was oftentimes not discussed, not enough in my opinion, was the just transition. And that would be something that would provide those individuals a pathway to new employment. It would keep them whole. It would help them maintain the level of not only pay that they have, but also provide them with a transition to modern employment that might be very much akin to what they're doing today, except in a renewable energy environment. So what I'm hoping for is, as we mobilize and we organize, we're in the process of trying to defeat Donald Trump. But in the process of doing that, we've got another gentleman there, and Joe Biden, who is not pro-environment. He's not taking bold stands to address a job guarantee. In fact, the team that tried to put forward a job guarantee was rejected during their discussions because, quite frankly, the establishment folks didn't understand what a job guarantee even was, which is a failure on our part to communicate better. But that gross negligence of not including that as part of the platform has got to be a rally cry for anyone that is trying to do real honest environmental justice. Real honest to goodness environmental legislation is going to require a just transition for those people that will be displaced. It's going to require a job guarantee to help mobilize. If you think back to World War II, there's the only thing that comes close to the kind of mobilization that we will need to do to stave off the effects of climate change. And you have to look at some of the lessons from World War II and how we garnered resources, how we marshaled those real resources. And so it's important to understand that we can do this. It's not a financial constraint. The United States government is a currency issuing government like the UK, like Australia, like Japan, and many others. And we can create that currency that we can spend into the economy to do these bold visions, to do a federal job guarantee. And no, we don't have to raise taxes to do it. So we don't have to find a pay for to do it, which is one of the big things the Republicans use when they block these things is, how are you going to pay for it? Even Hillary Clinton mocked Bernie Sanders during their fight over this. Joe Biden even took some shots at Elizabeth Warren. Many of them took shots at Bernie Sanders. How are you going to pay for it? And we need to understand a new book that just came out by Stephanie Kelton. Please get it. It's called The Deficit Myth. It explains how all these pieces work together. And it explains how we, in fact, can have not only a wonderful society that is inclusive and that can address the very, very stark realities of climate change, but we can afford it without raising taxes. Taxes are not a core component to funding a Green New Deal. There's no need to fund a Green New Deal with taxes. So I hope that we as a movement, that we as progressives can push our candidates, our elected officials, our neighbors, talk to them over coffee, talk to them at schools, talk to them wherever you can about the need for a federal job guarantee. A federal job guarantee is absolutely vital to not only dealing with the poverty in America and those communities of color that are first impacted by all these changes, but you immediately lift all ships by giving them a living wage with living benefits and give them a life with dignity. This is a very important thing, especially with the concerns about immigration. We can afford to give every immigrant in this country a federal job guarantee. We can afford to make sure that no one is competing for jobs, that in fact we have jobs there for anyone that wants one, a right to a job. I think this is very critical in terms of balancing society, in terms of getting everyone rowing in the same direction, and in terms of reinvigorating the local politic. If you're doing a job guarantee that's federally funded and locally administered, folks in South Carolina will be able to determine what kinds of work they want to see the people do. People can feel part of that. They can come to their local meetings, local government meetings, and weigh in on how they can be a part of this. So this is a democracy enhancer as well. Add in all these things, and we have a real shot at fighting back against climate change. And it's very important that we understand that it truly is in our hands. There is no financial constraint that would allow us to die. There's no financial reason for us to not do this stuff. There's no taxpayer dollars. We need to get rid of that trope. And we need to focus instead on public money, the public money. Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan were kings and queens of saying taxpayer dollars. It's important you never say that again. Get rid of that from your vernacular at the federal level. At the state level, it's very important to understand states are currency issuers or currency users. So your state is going to literally have to work hand in hand with the federal government to push them to spend, because you as a state are a currency user, and that means that you can go bankrupt. You can have major deltas in your budget. And that means you need to have an infusion of cash directly into South Carolina. And as the race to the bottom, the slashing of taxes to lure businesses into your community and slashing of taxes to pay for environmental cleanup happens, these race to the bottoms are part and parcel with the entire problem with climate change and the crisis that we face today. So it's very important, if you get a chance, please take a moment, learn about modern monetary theory, learn about a federal job guarantee, learn about a just transition. And if you get a chance, we're always here for you at Real Progressives as well. You can certainly catch us on our podcast where we talk about this stuff. Macro and Cheese, and our web address is www.macro, the letter N, cheese, CHEESE.com. And we release every Saturday morning. We have experts out the wazoo that hopefully will give you all the information you ever wanted or needed about these subjects and more. So thank you all very much for
appreciate you speaking with us today. Alan, are there any questions for Stephen in the chat? You're on mute, Alan.
Yes, I do have one question here from one of our OR people here in South Carolina. Elaine would like a little to address the Green New Deal. Still believing in nuclear energy, and what is the impact of that in our poor communities?
Well, from my perspective, the only clean nuclear energy that I feel has really got a shot is thorium, and there's a lot of work that has to be done in that area. Understand that the amount of energy that it will take to clean up the environment as well as maintain the environment is astronomical. We have done tremendous damage. And unfortunately, a lot of the renewable energy that's out there is not up to the task of addressing that. So I do believe there is a nuclear component here. I don't know what that is. I'm not a nuclear engineer, although I'd love to be. I do believe that thorium reactors, there's a lot of work being done pushing for getting thorium reactors, and that forward thinking. You can see a gentleman named Steve Keen, who is just a phenomenal economist. He's the renegade economist. He talks a lot about thorium reactors being the potential, salvation for this very reason you bring up.
Great. Well, thank you, Stephen, very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.